to planning this meeting at Lichfield District Council on the 20th of March 2025. Welcome everyone, and this is a publicly broadcast meeting that is streamed live via our website and available on YouTube. We'll therefore ask you to conduct yourselves in an appropriate manner. Welcome those present in the public seating area, and ask you to be respectful to the committee members, its officers, as well as those speaking, and I ask that you remain seated and quiet during these proceedings. My name is Councillor Harvey Coggins and I'm Chair of Lichfield Planning Committee. In a moment, I will ask everyone participating in the meeting to introduce themselves. For doing so, can I remind everyone in the meeting to ensure that your mobile and electronic devices are either switched off or muted throughout the session. For those that have registered to speak, please ensure that your content is relevant and material to the debate in hand and that you are mindful of the allotted speaking time. If you're over this time, you will be asked to stop speaking immediately. When speaking, please speak loudly and clearly and make sure that the microphone is on, so that those following from home, as well as those in the room, can see and hear you. Planning Committee is a non-political or quasi-judicial committee bound by National Planning Policy Framework. It builds local plan and supplementary planning guidance. Our decisions are informed by planning considerations tied to these policies. This is not pure science. We must weigh the benefits and harm when coming to review. The arrangements for conducting this meeting will be as follows. Officers will introduce each application. Any members of the public or applicants' agents are registered to speak when be invited by me to address the committee in turn. Members are reminded to keep their questions to the point on matters of clarification or planning issues only. Technical questions or clarification details of the application will generally be best directed to the officers. Committee members will then discuss and decide on the officer's recommendations on each application. I may also be clear that we cannot receive questions or comments from anyone in the public seating area. Please be assured that the committee plans to thoroughly question and consider all matters before it. When we come to vote on each application, I will initially ask all members to confirm if they are minded to approve the recommendations in the report by raising their hand. I will then ask those to be voting against or abstaining to confirm the specific planning reasons you are doing so. In the event of a vote being carried against the officer's recommendation, I will ask officers to comment on the validity of the planning reasons. If recommended by officers, we will ask members to vote again on whether to refer that item for a further report on those reasons. If for any reason a member is not present for the whole of the item, they will be asked not to vote on that application. I will now ask members and then officers participating to introduce themselves. Start with Vice Chair, please.
Councillor Election Vice Chair. Councillor Chair. Councillor Mark Gowan.
Councillor Sharon Taylor.
Councillor Russia.
Councillor Sonia Wilcott.
Councillor Ian Chicken. Councillor Salter.
Councillor Syria May.
Councillor Eric Cross. Earmark Municipal Planning Consultant. And so Senior Planning Officer. Welcome to Special Kent Council Highway.
Christine Lewis, Elections and Democratic Manager and Deputy Monitoring Officer.
Okay, thank you everybody. We'll move to the agenda now. First item on the agenda is apologies for absence. So I've got apologies from Councillor Marshall, Councillor Powell and Councillor Burnley. Okay, number 2 is declarations of interest. Okay, Councillor Rushton, please.
Yeah, I'll just get her interest, but I am for the application. I also know it's in the
Okay, thank you. Any other declarations of interest? Okay, 3 minutes of the previous meeting. Does anybody like to make any comments on these? Okay, thank you. Okay, they are taken as a correct record of the meeting. And now I'll pass over to the officer for the application tonight, which is 24/00457/OUT MEI Arkle Farm, Ashley Road, Tamworth. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So Arkle Farm is a large part of the land on the northeast edge of Bamber, the north of the 5493. Site benefits from permission to deliver 1,000 houses, around 200 dwellings are thought to be constructed at the time of opening. To the west of the site of Arkle Farm is a site known as Grounds Lane, and it's recently been subject to an appeal after the council refused permission for up to 210 dwellings. The appeal was heard as an inquiry, the decision was issued in May 2024, allowing the appeal to the north and east of the site as open countryside. So Arkle Farm is here, Grounds Lane site is here. Before I continue with the presentation, I think it would be prudent to go into what this application is seeking to do, why it's been brought before council in the extraordinary planning meeting. The application for seeks to vote and remove a number of conditions from the
Very fun if you want to join.
register that is 14.00516. OGC investment. This is part of our executive statement. The conditions concerned this application relate to the monitor and manage mitigation strategy. I'll refer to you as the strategy. That was imposed by the Secretary of State in relation to planning improvement works. The concept behind the strategy was to allow state interim housing on the site to cause that strategically that further monitoring of traffic conditions could be undertaken that enable the formation of a suitable mitigation strategy. The conditions on the original application are number 24 to 29 inclusive. 24 requires submission of the strategy. 25 provided instruction on the information strategy must contain. Condition 26 requires compliance with the monitoring requirements and the condition of collecting data set out in the strategy. Condition 27 requires the implementation of home improvement works in Hampton Junction prior to more than 200 dwellings being occupied. Condition 28 requires an assessment of the network conditions in accordance with the strategy agreed prior to the completion and readiness for occupation of all 300 dwellings, and required the submission of a new mitigation scheme if network conditions were found not to be acceptable as part of that assessment. Condition 29 contains similar requirements to condition 28, but this time the assessment of network conditions, conditions needed undertaken prior to the completion and readiness for occupation of more than 500 dwellings. Councils will understand from reading the committee report that the stop-start approach described above, as required by the conditions on the original approval, is risking delaying the delivery of housing at Arkle Farm. While I've not read out each condition on the original outline in detail, and nor have I provided them in full form, the description of each condition above should provide a fair indication on the level of work that would be required to be undertaken at each stage. However, if it is deemed acceptable, appropriate and desirable, later on I can bring up the original conditions contained within the Secretary of State decision for Arkle Farm and show the wording to councillors on the screen beside me. Councillors will be aware that the council has lost its 5-year housing supply following calculations made up of publication of the December 2024 version of the National Planning Policy Framework. Arkle Farm is an allocated site that is responsible for delivering housing within the district that bolsters the council's housing supply. To delay the delivery of housing on a large allocated site at a time when the council's housing supply is less than 5 years risks increasing the vulnerability of other settlements in the district to speculative housing applications. Such speculative applications might not be optimally located. However, the tilted balance, if successfully engaged in such cases, and particularly if those applicants could point towards much slower than expected delivery of housing on larger sites such as Arkle Farm, that might result in the council having to afford significant weight to the benefits of quicker housing delivery on smaller speculative sites, making them much harder to resist or defend an appeal if refused. The Section 73 application before council today, as already stated, seeks to simplify the highway-related planning conditions on the original outline approval. The idea is to secure adequate mitigation for the townless highway network through the provision of improvements to junctions in various locations within the town, which can actually be seen on the slide for context. Such mitigation, if implemented before more than 500 dwellings are occupied, will be sufficient in mitigating all impacts from both the Arkle Farm development and the Grounds Lane development allowed by the planning inspection in October 2024. Importantly, having a single suite of improvements undertaken in one go would significantly reduce the risk of delays to housing delivery. And this is essentially because once the improvements have been made At the required trigger point, there is no need for the applicant to cease building in future stages while further mitigation is identified through monitoring and managing. So the slide on the screen shows the 3 locations that have been improved and the relationship they have with the Arkle Farm site. So, the Arkle Farm site. The area marked 1 and 4 is Fountains Junction. This will experience improvements prior to the occupation of the 200th dwelling, as the original condition imposed on the outline is carried forwards. Improvements number 2 at the junction between the A513 and Gilway Lane, Coton Lane, 3 at the Upper Gungate and A513 junction, and 4, which is also at Fountain Junction, also needs to be in place prior to completion of the 500th dwelling. Once improvements 2, 3 and 4 have been undertaken, the applicant will be able to build out the remaining dwellings at Arkle Farm without having to pause delivery for any further monitoring, management and mitigation. Furthermore, the improvements will be able to accommodate the additional 210 units that may be delivered at Ground Lane. Councillors will be aware from the committee report that paragraph 105 of the inspector's decision for the Ground Lane appeal essentially confirms that suitable mitigation can be conditioned without prejudicing the delivery of Arkle Farm. For avoidance of doubt, paragraph 105 of the inspector's decision confirms without any ambiguity, I quote, both the appeals team and the entirety of the Arkle Farm development can be accommodated on the local highway network safely and in capacity terms. That is subject to the mitigation, end quote. I will now show councillors photographs of the junction. So it's in that context that the application before you is being brought with a recommendation of approval. I will now show councillors photographs of the junctions and road network within Tamworth that are subject to mitigation measures to improve capacity and safety to highway users, and I've used Google Street View photographs for the following slides. So this is Fountain Junction, where Upper Gungate and Ashley Road meets Comerford Road. This photograph dates from November 2024. That photograph. Just so you know, unfortunately, these circles are not in the correct location, so I do apologise. The first improvements at Fountain Junction must take place before the occupation of more than 200 dwellings. This condition was imposed as condition 27 on the original approval, 14.00516 OUT MEI, and assuming this application is approved, it will be carried forwards and renumbered accordingly. The changes proposed as part of the initial improvement work to permit the delivery of more than 200 dwellings involve widening the northbound carriageway through reshaping, reducing the size and repositioning the triangular traffic island. The stop line is being moved further north and the traffic island in Comerford Road is being reduced in size. It's submitted that these changes will increase capacity as well as enable large vehicles to manoeuvre more easily and safely through the junction. Just to reiterate, this condition, this plan has already been approved as part of the original outline. This is a junction further north on Comerford Road on the edge of Tamworth, where Gilway Lane and Coton Lane both meet Comerford Road. This photograph dates from November 2024. So this is one of the 3 proposed improvement works that have been put forward by this application, and it's required to be undertaken prior to the occupation of more than 500 dwellings. These changes simply involve the formation of a double mini roundabout arrangements servicing both the junction between the A513 and Gilway Lane, that's A513 Comerford Road, A513 Gilway Lane, and the A513 Comerford Road in Putnam. Introducing roundabouts here has the effect of changing the priorities for drivers on the road who are seeking to turn into Gilway Lane or Coton Lane from the A513, but also reduces the risk of queuing traffic on the A513 way to turn into Gilway Lane or Coton Lane. This is the approach to Upper Gungate, heading west along Hopper Drive. This photograph dates from July 2022. This is the second of the 3 proposed improvement works required prior to the occupation of more than 500 dwellings. The main alteration here is the widening of the westbound. It's the westbound carriageway known as Hopper Drive, and it will be widened utilising existing public footpath and north of Quick Fix car park. This creates a dedicated left turn filter lane while retaining 2 right turn filter lanes on the Upper Gungate. Oh, I apologise, I didn't switch my thing there. So there's the left turn filter lane, 2 right turn filter lanes there. This is the third This is the third of the 3 proposed improvement works required prior to the occupation of more than 500 dwellings. It will be noted that we are back at Fountain Junction. The improvements carried out to support the occupation of no more than 200 dwellings will be sufficient up to 500 dwellings. Then, to improve capacity further, additional works are needed in this location to enable the occupation of more than 500 dwellings. The plan on the left shows the layout of the junction from around 200 occupation on site up to the 500th occupation on site. And the plan on the right shows the changes that need to be undertaken to allow more than 500 occupations on site. The changes proposed as part of the second improvements to Fountain Junction involve replacing the existing traffic lights with new ones that have improved signal timings. Road markings at the junction will also be changed, and the southbound approach to the on the A513 will be widened to increase the length of the 2-lane carriageway section of this location. For the benefit of councillors, I've created a slide which provides the location of each improvement to the highway network and the number of dwellings that forms a trigger for those works. On the right is the column listing the changes proposed by those improvements, and I can revert back to the slide upon request. Finally, this slide shows the highway improvements plan, which was approved by the inspector and which has been secured as a requirement by condition 16 of the Browns Lane appeal decision. The improvements shown on screen clearly relate to Fountain Junction and the Offa Drive up to Gungate. In allowing the appeal and in the paragraphs that I referred to earlier in this presentation, the inspector agreed that the improvements shown on screen, together with the community impact assessment that was also provided to the inspector, would be sufficient to mitigate the impacts of both the Browns Lane development and the Arkle Farm development. So the principle of development on the site at Arkle Farm and all of the matters discussed as part of the appraisal of the original application are not to be reopened as part of the discussion for this application. And not to be reopened because the principle has been established by the approval of that application. Instead, councillors are requested to consider the position taken in the committee report on highway matters arising as a result of the proposed changes to the condition. Councillors must acknowledge the objection that remains from the local highway authority, Staffordshire County Council. The LHA's objection is lodged on the basis that the submitted traffic assessment does not include other community developments. In this case, the now approved application of Browns Lane. The LHA's position is that the application before the council lacks necessary evidence to support the variation to the condition for the removal of the conditions that we propose. However, councillors must also take into consideration that the inspector's decision on the Browns Lane appeal found that paragraphs 12.22 to 12.31 of the committee report. This is referred to by the highway summary briefing note, which provides a simplified overview of the current situation, and is also referred to within the contents of the applicant's legal advice. Officers have considered the advice offered to the applicant by the council in paragraphs 12.31, 12.38 of the committee report. Officers have provided a number of benefits that would derive from committing the variations proposed, paragraphs 12.40, 12.43 of the committee report. There have been 3 comments submitted since the publication of the committee report, the contents of which were summarised in the supplementary document circulated to councillors before committee. After very careful consideration of all relevant matters and with full acknowledgement of the objection of the local highways authority, officers nonetheless conclude that the application should be supported for the reasons set out in the accompanying report and in the presentation just given in accordance with the required conditions and as suggested in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that report. So now we'll move on to speakers. So first I'd like to ask Rebecca Mitchell, who is the applicant for this, to come to the microphone just there. You'll have 5 minutes to speak, which will begin when you start speaking, and we'll give you a timer warning, 30 seconds toward the end, and then you'll be able to stop speaking when your time is up.
Thank you.
Okay, when you're ready. Thank you.
Good evening, members. I am Rebecca Mitchell, Planning Director at Royal Strategic Land with the application. Your officers have prepared a clear and comprehensive committee report, having scrutinised the application in quite significant detail, in my view. The officers recommending approval to you, and his advice. I'm going to try and keep this brief and just highlight some observations that we would like to highlight. I would start by saying that the council allocated this site and supported and resolved to grant planning permission for the development back in 2017. We are committed to deliver this development and also committed to deliver it in full and the high quality that you and we would all expect. It's been highly successful so far, the first two phases, including the houses, infrastructure, a large area of open space is nearing completion, and we are hoping that the next phase of development can start on site later this year, and that is something that approving this application this evening would help to achieve. Alpha Farm is a very important component of the district housing land supply. At 1,000 homes, it accounts for 11% of Lichfield's total supply as identified in your local plan, also making a contribution towards Tamworth housing requirement also. This level of contribution was significant even before the government changes to the planning system in December. And I'm sure you're all aware, one of the consequences of that new national policy has been to increase significantly Lichfield's housing requirements from 478 homes a year to 748. That is significant, and as your officers have advised, that now means that one of the direct consequences council currently can't show 5-year supply. So it's even more important than ever that allocated, consented, plan-led housing growth areas like Alpha Farm continue to deliver new homes as swiftly as possible and unimpeded. That is the foundation of the application before you this evening. This application does not seek to change the outline permission in any way or the development. It simply seeks to substitute specific detailed transport improvement measures, mitigation schemes on the local highway network instead of the monitor and manage, or as we call it, the stop-start approach to transport that was in the original outline. The proposals this evening have been subject to detailed traffic modelling and careful design by our planning our transport consultants, and there has been extensive engagement with planning and highways officers for a number of years to get to this point. As the case officer has explained to you, there are 4 specific junctions where mitigation measures will be introduced to cater if this application is approved. The outline permission included a mitigation at Fountain Junction. This will move the northern stop line and will allow more vehicles to be held during the red phase of traffic light. More vehicles will be able to pass through during the green phase, and it will improve the overall operation of the junction. This now has technical approval from highways, and the work will begin shortly. This application proposes 3 further improvements. Further improvements at Fountain Lane Junction, which will replace the existing traffic lights with a new set, will improve pedestrian crossing facilities. There's also the improvements to A513, Gilway Lane, Coulson Lane, and at the southern end of Goodgate Corridor and the westbound approach of Off Drive. Whilst Staffordshire Highways continue to express the view that further information is needed, they've made it clear that this is only in relation to cumulative impact. Can the Browns Lane development?
I'm going to have to ask you to stop speaking at any time. Thank you for that, though. Okay, we have one more speaker, and that is Robert Pritchard, who is an objector. We've got 5 minutes to say. We'll give you a warning, 30 seconds towards the end, and we'll ask you to stop speaking when you think it's time. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Robert Pritchard, the chairman of the local parish council and a county councillor for the area as well. I'm not here to argue against house building. I'm not here to argue against the merits of the housing development. I'm here to argue for the protection of the provisions of infrastructure. For those that may not be aware, the Ashby Road corridor suffers from extreme traffic at peak times. As part of the condition, the development monitor and manage approach was implemented. This condition means that the traffic issues have to be addressed as part of the development in this area. This is because we have old roads in an old part of town with limited transport corridors available. So the monitor and manage conditions are here for that very reason. But the developers want to get away with that by bamboozling the committee with out-of-date traffic data and the age-old threat of appeals and legal costs if the council doesn't pay. The data the developers are using is old. It's from the trailing edges of the pandemic when traffic flow was a fraction of what it is now. It's a false picture and they don't want to be made to do new studies because it means the developer will have to provide for real local infrastructure improvements. The application is simply the developer trying to get out of paying for traffic infrastructure up front, which is what they were required to do. Since the data was compiled, there are hundreds of new houses being built on the Ashby Road corridor, a new business park at the junction of the M42, and there are more than 1,000 houses which have planning permission. 1,000 since this traffic study was undertaken. Plus, schools are now fully open. There are 3 schools on the Ashby Road, 4 fed by the Ashby Road and a college campus. Workers are back in the office and people are out and about again. It is not the same picture as when the data was collected. Rejecting the application isn't about stopping the development. It isn't about stopping houses being built. It's about requiring the infrastructure to be put in place by the developer. The data is simply defunct. It needs doing again. Please hold the developer to account and say no and make them do the job properly. The developer is simply trying to bully LDC planning officers into accepting this out-of-date position, despite Staffordshire County Council's objections. I draw the committee's attention to the objection from the Local Highways Authority, the Parish Council and myself. We're all of the same view. I quote the County Council. Staffordshire County Council wish to continue our objection to the removal, monitor and manage planning conditions. Without clear grounds for refusal, the developer has not provided satisfactory data to back up this application. If the committee won't reject this application, I beg them to defer it to a site visit at least. I will gladly walk the committee around the area during the traffic time so they can see the impact this is having and what work needs to be done to address this. Please do support local residents, holding the developers to their word and make them provide the infrastructure that's required. Residents of Tamworth Borough and Lichfield District sit in awful traffic and it's only going to get worse if these conditions are released early. These conditions are the only hope of the infrastructure being provided by a developer who agreed to them in the first place as part of this application. Help make the situation better by holding the monitor and manage conditions. Again, this isn't about stopping the development and it's not about stopping houses being built. It's about getting the road infrastructure that was promised by the developers. You will all be able to say you did the right thing and you'll be applauded for it. You will have been able to stand up for residents and stop a developer trying to cheat the rules. The county council says no, the parish council says no, and the local councillors all say no. We just need this committee to say the same. Tell the developer the conditions remain, and I beg you to refuse this application or at least defer and have a site visit. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So let's move on to any questions that any councillors have got. I can councillor Ansell first, please.
Thank you. I'm trying to approve the recommendation. A couple of questions. On section 15, recommendation. The first one item is matter application phase 3 must be made in 7 years from the 7th of June 2018. Means it's 7th of June 2025. Not long now, and I wanted to manage to do that in a short time there. And number 2 is reserve matters for phase 4, in 12 years of 7th of June 2018, which is 7th of June 2030. And I wonder if they will be able to manage that in time of the first one. It's very short.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. The developer, the applicant is aware of the need to have phase 3 development in by the 7th of June this year, and so it's on their radar, and they don't predict any reason why they would be able to achieve that, and the same will be going for 12 years. Both of those are aware of those condition requirements.
Councillor Chetland.
Thank you, Chair. I've got some concerns in relation to this. 12.5 makes, this is a site that's turned down by the planning committee, went to secondary stage and decided yes. Then other aspects were decided by the inspector. They make their decisions, which are above ours, and they have said all parties agree to monitor and manage approach. And that's what's in place now. We're being asked as a lower judgment, not court, but a lower judgment committee to overrule the more senior partners within this. I don't really understand that. On top of that, it's described in 12.12 as a stop and start approach for developers. If the roadworks don't start until half the estate's built, then it's a stop and start approach to all the additional traffic that's there. So you're just creating additional chaos before the road is there. If the thing is in place in the first place, I could understand. The next 12.29 mentions that the inspector didn't refer to the local highways authority, and therefore, because they didn't refer, it must mean that they were in favour of the things that we proposed. But I'm not sure I go with that. 12.40, we need the houses built in a hurry. Let's ignore the issues. Sorry, it's not exact wording. And 12.42, it removes the work from the developers and the planners and saves money from the public, but it doesn't sort any problems out of the residents. So I'm really struggling with this. There's nothing to get in the way of develop the houses. We need the houses. The plan says we have to have that many houses. But it just seems to say out of that place, in that we're going to put the problems in and then try and remedy the road structure, rather than put the road structure in and then move forwards. So from my point of view, I don't think I can support this. I'd be interested in the highway issue, as soon as you said it.
Okay, anybody want to?
Yeah, just to pick up a couple of points. One of the key considerations you mentioned, it was mentioned that a lower order committee is being asked to kind of arrive at a different conclusion. That's correct, but as I've emphasised in the report and in the presentation, the evidence to say that what is being put to committee today is acceptable was tested at the Browns Lane appeal. That was an inquiry. That was a planning inspector who had regard for, it was in that case a different applicant's, appellant's evidence, but they prepared evidence to show, and as I showed at the end of this presentation, they did a community impact assessment and provided a mitigation plan that the Browns Lane inspector was satisfied with. They were satisfied with the data that was collected. They were satisfied that they were not concerned by the age of the data that was being used. Bearing in mind the decision was made in October 2024. They didn't air concerns on that front. So the fact that the inspector has had regard for the evidence, a community impact assessment, mitigation that is comparable almost directly to what is being proposed now, and then the inspector unambiguously concluded this will be sufficient to mitigate the impacts of both the Browns Lane development and Arkle Farm, is a very significant material consideration that we have to afford weight to. And I would say that it has been tested to an extent by a higher authority than the local planning authority, but you are not technically incorrect for what you said. I just want to maybe give some context. Just to reiterate again why this is likely to speed up the delivery of housing. There's one condition that requires implementation of improvements by the occupation of no more than 200 houses. So that is, I think the applicant advised that was ready to go. They've got technical sign off, that's ready to get going. There'll obviously be a period of time when that's happening. That will be, as you're right, a delay before they can occupy more than 200 houses. Doesn't stop them building, it's occupation. Then between 200 and 500, there's no breaks. And then at 500, there's a need to implement the other three. And once those three have been implemented, there's no further requirement for them to cease and stop and manage. So after the three mitigation schemes that have been shown have been implemented prior to the 500th occupation, the developer won't need to then cease or stop between then and sort of the 1,000th house, the end of the development, which is why it is foreseen that it will speed up the delivery.
Okay, can I bring the highways officer in now? If you'd like to respond to that, thank you.
How long have I got, Chair? With the Chair's permission, may I give a bit of background context? Because I think that's going to help. I'm not saying the planning officer's presentation isn't helpful, but if I may give some context, which may help answer questions, which may help generate more questions. So that's okay, Chair. This has been and continues to be an incredibly complex site, an incredibly complex corridor. I'm going to try and simplify it, which is not going to be easy, but bear with me. We had an application in 2014, cutting a very long story short, that went to appeal, that was approved with a monitor and manage planning condition and strategy. At the time of the appeal, the applicant could not provide mitigation on the highway network for 4,000 houses. There's no scheme on the table that could provide mitigation for the full scheme. Rightly or wrongly, a monitor and manage planning conditions put in place that allow the developer in stages to build houses, to monitor the network, the highway, and if conditions are fine, you carry on building. If conditions are not fine, based on traffic counts data obtained, then you have to fix it. Mitigation. It was as simple as that. But that was basically the crux of the matter. As the planning officer has already stated, the mitigation to get to 200 is approved by us, no issue with that whatsoever. The developer then has a jump to 500, and the developer has one final jump to get to 4,000. This authority had a planning application in 2018 on Browns Lane, the developer of Browns Lane to put 210 units onto Browns Lane. With a monitor and manage strategy in place on Arkle Farm. Bear with me, deal with me. Now, Arkle Farm could only build up to 200-300 because they had their monitor and manage strategy. Planning permission has been granted for 1,000. I have no objection to that, but they have hoops to jump through to get there. Browns Lane come along and want to also plumb into that same highway network that Arkle Farm are plumbing into. Again, right or wrongly, a decision was taken by the Highway Authority, and people disagree with the route that we took on them, that the Browns Lane development, if they could supply a nil detriment scheme to the Fountains Junction that the planning officer has showed, which is the northern junction of the corridor, that wouldn't preclude the Arkle Farm development from continuing through their planning process, we would support that application. So we did, and that's where we got to. Obviously, I think I was in planning committee when Browns Lane came, it got rejected by the authority. We as a highway authority didn't have any objection, so that's where we came from. We then end up in an appeal situation because the Browns Lane developer appealed the decision by Lichfield District Council. We as Highway Authority have no objection to the Browns Lane planning application. Therefore, we were not involved in the planning appeal because we were not an objector. We had no issue to consent additional houses being built on Browns Lane. Okay, this is where it gets a bit more interesting. At the Browns Lane appeal, which we were not involved with because we were not objecting, a piece of work was introduced to the planning inspector by the Browns Lane applicant. That piece of work was as the planning officer stated, a transport document that showed the cumulative impact of both their 210 dwellings and the full 1,000 from Arkle Farm, 1,200. We, as a highway authority, didn't know that document existed after the time of the inquiry. We never saw it. We never looked into the data. We never had, at the appeal, any opportunity to discuss it. We found out after the appeal that this document had been produced that we had never seen or signed up to. Okay, moving forward, we get the planning decision from the inspector. He takes a document at face value and says it's all fine. Puts a paragraph on it, 5 minute decision notice. It says to everybody, absolutely fine to approve the Browns Lane, and it's absolutely fine for Arkle Farm to come along as well. We have still no objection to Browns Lane. That's fine. What we're here to discuss tonight is the removal of the planning condition for Arkle Farm. Yeah. This is where the crux of the matter is summary. Forgive me if I haven't lost anybody yet, but this is the crux of our objection that still stands to this planning application. The applicants at Arkle Farm put this planning application in some time ago. They did not consider in their transport documentation Browns Lane. Okay? They have just provided evidence of their own 1,000 dwellings. We objected that you need to take into consideration Browns Lane. You need to model 1,200 dwellings. They had only modelled their own 1,000, conveniently enough. Okay? So that's where our objection started and remains. The applicant has not provided their own evidence that the corridor can take 1,200 dwellings. That is where our objection remains. The applicant has not provided evidence. The water is muddied by the inspector at Browns Lane, having some homework given to him. It's like giving you a maths homework to your English teacher tomorrow. I'm not complaining with regards to the inspector. Who was that inspector to agree or disagree that document that the Highway Authority had never seen or agreed to and think it was fine being provided by somebody else? Now, that may sound like Sarah's right, and I apologise if it sounds that way, but that is the fact and our opinion. Now, when obviously that decision came out, we sought legal advice. We hired a barrister who just so happened to be involved in the original appeal all those years ago, who actually knew what we were talking about. So we didn't get a barrister who'd never been to the site, who'd never seen the original appeal. He was involved in the monitoring management. He sat in this very room all those years ago. So we had a barrister who knew the scheme because we hired him all those years ago to represent us. And his advice was that the additional information that was submitted at that appeal, not by the applicant that we're talking about tonight, by another applicant using completely different traffic data that the inspector in the Patover decided was fine is a material consideration, and I agree with the planning officer, we're not disregarding, disregarding that. But that planning inspector was not there to approve this planning application. That inspector was there to decide on Browns Lane and Browns Lane on its own. He was not there to determine whether this section 73 could be approved. That was not his brief, that was not his reading. And that was the barrister's advice that we were given, which we thought that's what we agree. Okay? Nor did the data or modelling that was underpinned in that be put under our noses and be approved. And I'm sure the inspector was told that. And if he wasn't, he should have asked questions. So we are where we are. Forgive this is a very long-winded answer. Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity. But I'm hoping this will help you understand what's in front of you. I'm more than happy to continue taking questions. It may lead to more questions. But the basis of our objection remains is all we want the applicant to do is to submit their own model, which they have. They have their own traffic model. Instead of using somebody else's, use your own that you've used for all these years, that we're happy with, that we've agreed, and put in 1,200. If it's fine, we will approve this application. It's as simple as that. The applicant has not done what we've asked. The applicant is piggybacking on another planning application that has had evidence put in front of the inspector that has not been put in front of the highway authority, that has not been agreed, has not been validated by the highway authority. And we think it's a backdoor approach to what we've been trying to work with for years with the applicant along this corridor. If the applicant can give us the information, if it's stacked up, we will happily change our mind and recommend it.
Yeah, I'm going to have to put in there. Thank you for that. I'm going to move back to councillor questions. So first I've got councillor Mears, please.
Thank you. Good evening. In the run-up to this meeting, I've been speaking to residents that live the Sutton side of Tamworth, and they're suffering with horrendous roadworks, the HS2 roadworks, and what seems to be a constant run of accidents. This traffic situation is having a massive economic effect on local businesses, with staff being consistently late to work, unable to get to work, and some people actually losing their jobs through being late to work. Regarding Rawlett School, which is very close to the Arkle development, children are actually unable to get to school. Some of the children that are taking taxis to school, the taxis haven't been able to get through Tamworth to pick the children up to get them back to school. And there are some children that have missed multiple days off school so far this month. With healthcare and the health visits and, visiting new mums, the traffic just makes it impossible for the healthcare visitors to achieve the number of visitors they need to achieve each day. The current situation is just crippling everybody locally. It's crippling businesses, it's crippling residents, and it comes down to the management of traffic and the management of big projects. There's nobody that seems to be coordinating everything together. You can't be having massive residential developments, HS2, and other roadworks, just normal regular roadworks, smaller level roadworks, all going on at the same time, and expect businesses and normal service function. It's impossible. The traffic issues have already been highlighted in the information we've been given. And to cut a long story short, I think we're actually creating a place that no one would want to live because no one can get out of it. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so next speaker, I've got councillor Salter, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. What's your mind? Really well by our highways officer. Come back with a few more answers on them. Bottom line really is following on from Councillor Shepton on this. this is an instruction from the inspectors. They override us, they tell us the rules. We can't tell them the rules. We can't override their decision.
Okay, keep going, councillor Ashton, please.
Can I just ask, Highways Officer Mark, if the applicant was to produce a model and it was to be evaluated, what would the delay be in the rest of the development?
They need to obtain data, go to their model, to submit to us. We would then review that, because obviously it would form, it forms part of this life plan application that we debated. So the applicant would need to get the data, put it through the model, generate the report, that would be submitted to the planning officer. We have a reconsult, 21 days, planning reconsult, and then we'd make a decision. So it probably relatively quick when we get it. It's how long it would take the applicant to get it to the planning authority, to then get us to review it.
Would you like to make a best guess, or is it Caroline's piece of truth?
The applicant has either got, the applicant has two options. They either use their own data, heard the speaker discuss, and put that in and run the model. That can be done relatively quickly. If they wish to use the model data that was submitted in front of the planning inspector, they don't have ownership of that data. They would have to go and purchase that data on the ground line applicant who has that model, that's their own traffic model for their own planning inspection.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to bring our legal advisor, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think we clarify the status of the inspector's decision because I think there's a misunderstanding by committee. It's not a binding decision. It's not a matter of you overruling the inspector in the grounds lane appeal. Effectively, you have an inspector's decision. It's a material consideration, and you're the decision maker in relation to this application. So it's up to you what weight you attach to that decision as a material consideration. The officer's advice is it carries significant weight. That's your officer's opinion. But obviously, you're the decision maker. You decide what weight is attached to that inspector's decision. It's not a matter of you have a precedent and you're overruling your higher authority or anything like that. The application is before you as a local planning authority. You're the decision maker, and it's your decision to make.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I'm going to move to Councillor Cross now.
Thank you, Chair. I'm quite concerned here with this situation throughout the district. This just chaos everywhere with these developers building and roads not getting put in as and when they should be put in. You see it all over around us at the moment. I'm really concerned about this particular one. I know the area. I've heard from three of my colleagues here. I've got concerns with it. I think looking around, everybody seems to have got concerns with this. I would not like to see it refused. We need to house it. But I think the developer should be complying with what Stoss County Council Highways simply asking for. I see no reason why they can't provide that. And I would propose that we support the parish council and the highways for the developer to provide the information required. Maybe we can defer this decision tonight until the developer has provided that information to Stoss County Council.
Okay, so we've got a proposal for deferral there. Yeah, okay.
Thank you. I'll move on to, I've got councillor Taylor next, please.
I just think that which due diligence it should provide the information required for the full 1,200. There's been so much development in this area, lots of consortium sites, lots of different developments. We've got to look at the full picture of the houses being built, so I think we need to get that information for us.
Okay, thank you. I've got councillor Mears again next, please.
Thank you. I think my concerns have just been voiced by my colleagues there, but I don't think there should be any movement away from the monitoring of the traffic. I think it's critical, and I think we can't make a full decision unless we've got all the information, and it needs to be current, modern and up to date.
Just like to bring the officer in first.
I just want to raise a distinction between outcomes. Maybe you could back me up or reinforce. There are deferral to request information will enable the current application to be supported. So you're essentially saying provide the information that Highways is requesting in order to justify removing and varying conditions, or this application gets refused, which reverts back to the original permission, wherein they have to be monitored, mitigated, and managed. Those are I believe, the options before councillors today. So one is deferral, but if you defer, you're seeking an outcome to this application, which may be positive if the information stacks up, or you refuse this application and that reverts back to monitor, mitigate, and manage that strategy.
Okay, so I have councillor Salter next on the list, please.
Thank you, Chair. I believe you may go to the Tilly on that, but so just from what we heard earlier on the Bay Council was it was believed to be long out of date information. Then if this does get referral or new evidence can be assured up to date information.
Okay, I'd like to bring the colleague revised again, please.
Sorry, Chair, just to add to what Tom was saying. What Tom was saying about outcomes is absolutely correct, but I think the question for me is that if you're minded to defer the application tonight, how long are you going to defer it for? Because in terms of modelling that the applicant has to provide, are they going to be able to provide that in a short period of time, or is that something that's going to have to take a period of time for them to carry out modelling? In which case you can't defer something indefinitely. So I think there's an issue with deferments. If the information is there and can be provided, that's fine. But if you're asking the applicant to carry out a whole new modelling process, that may take a period of time, and you can't defer an application indefinitely. So if that's the case, I think you probably need to give consideration as to whether or not to refuse the application, to enable the applicant then to come back and resubmit an application for a variation with the modelling once they've done that. I mean, I don't know whether Tom wants to add anything to that or.
Got councillor Shefflin next, please.
Thank you. I just wondered if we were to approve this with the condition that Highways have to be the information provided to them and approve the removal of the monitoring. Is that something that we can do that makes make a decision to say not deferring it, considering because of very standard condition has to be complied with prior to anything? Go ahead.
I'm not sure the mechanics of that. I don't know whether the better approach might be to delegate authority to the head of service to grant permission once they're satisfied that that modelling has been provided or something to that effect.
You secure the information, we consult with Highways to make sure Highways is satisfied and accepts it. If it doesn't object, and only at that point can a decision be made at delegated level. And if that the information is not successful in being retrieved by the planning authority, the application can still be refused.
Okay, so I have got a couple more speakers. I do think you're going to need to start thinking about a vote soon though, but I have got councillor Galvin on my list. Please.
Yeah, basically, I was going to propose that we refuse the application as there's not all the information there. Probably not.
Okay, thank you. So I've got a proposal to refuse there. Previously, we did have a proposal. We've got a second there. Okay, so looking for someone second something. Okay, so I've got councillor Ashton and you're seconding the refusal. Okay, so I've got a second on the refusal. So, okay, so we're now going to a vote. Okay, so
We got to give a, have we not got to give a reason for it?
The reason is that inadequate information has been
okay, so we'll take that as the reason for the vote. So we are looking for a vote.
Sorry, Chair, I believe you've got a proposal for deferment on the table. I think you need to find whether there's actually a seconder for that proposal first before you then move to a substantive vote such as refusal or grant.
Okay, so we've got a proposal and a second. Got a proposal for the deferral. So have we got a seconder for the deferral? No, we haven't. Okay, so we're moving to the vote on refusing.
We did have a proposal for approval as well. Yeah. So that's your
He didn't formally propose, he said that
He said he's minded
he was
to-
minded, but there was no formal proposal. Are you satisfied that I've got that right?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I heard minded to not. Okay, so I'm going to now, again, I'll just clarify that. We're moving to a vote on the proposal we've got to refuse this. So if you are minded to refuse it, please can you raise your hand. Sorry, Ron.
Sorry, Chair, so can we set out the reasons for the refusal? Because obviously whoever's proposing the refusal needs to set out their reasons and then it has to be seconded.
Reason was inadequate information given to statutory consultative parliament.
Okay, and the seconder obviously seconds and supports that reason for refusal.
So now we'll move to the vote. If you are minded to agree with the refusal, please raise your hand. Yeah, okay, so that's passed unanimous, so it's no. Yeah, okay. Is there anybody against that? Or any abstention? No, okay, so that was unanimous. Okay, thank you. So that has been refused. Thank you, everybody. Okay, thank you. That is this meeting closed at 7:02. Thank you.